recording in progress.
Yeah, sorry, I was
Absolutely. No,
just so I don't forget.
I wanted to get to you guys because I think you really know what you're doing, and in terms of music and what we need and so on and so forth. And that's very important to me. That's why made this album, this early 70s. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah,
Yes.
actually, we well, we've been playing the Roxy Music cover
Oh,
on the
that's
station,
great.
and
Yes, it's
I was
really
looking through the list of. I mean, it's like Willie and I. This is all like right up our alley.
yeah,
The bands, especially like Stooges, Slade is big for me. Just
me
love those
too.
guys.
Noddy. I knew
And
Noddy. I did gigs with all these people, one way or another. And certainly Noddy Holder, I think, was one of the greatest rock and roll vocalists of all time. But the whole vibe for me is to reintroduce people to that era, because God knows I've been there 50, 60 years doing this shit, from,
yeah,
so it really struck me as important to get to as many people like you guys that clearly know what you're talking about. Therefore, your audience knows what you're talking about. And it's important for them to understand that those songs were brilliant. Mark Bolan was brilliant,
yeah,
professorial, Pixie, magic. I knew him when we were 15 years old, 16 years old, and we were models. And we go and like get a modeling job. I mean, dude, he wasn't this sort of, extraordinary imp his entire life. He wasn't born in the forests. He was born in South London. I was born in North London, but he became that. He actually went to Paris. This is absolutely true. He went to Paris and he was a sweet guy, a regular guy, playing music, writing songs. Came back, he was a wizard, and he said that he met a wizard in Paris.
oh,
This is absolutely true. I'm not elaborating on anything. This is a fact. Now he could have been making it up, but he had changed so radically. And then he went to the Roundhouse Club in London, perhaps you've heard of. It's one of the big clubs,
Yeah.
hmm
important clubs. And there he is cross-legged with Steve Peregrine Took to his right playing congas, and with an acoustic guitar playing these Tolkien-esque tunes. And I'm going, Mark, what happened? You turned into this extraordinary pixie. And he took that vibe with a boa, and look what happened. It was the Beatles. It was the Beatles for at least a couple of years. It was
hmm
huge. I mean, massive. And then I remember him saying, "I won't last long."
Ooh.
And I said, "No, man, come on, don't be ridiculous. You'll be 80 years old and you'll be wearing eyeliner. And unfortunately, that was not true. And we were all very, very upset about that. But he lives on, and the music lives on, and that's where I'm trying to get youngins to listen to this music and these bands that nobody really ever heard of, especially today. Where it's all absolutely recreated and technologically AI music.
Yeah.
I mean, what on earth is going on? These dreadful, awful choruses, if they're even writing a chorus. So I'm very anti all of that, which is ludicrous, because I'm not 18. And so I want to bring this to those 18-year-olds, put it that way.
Well, I thank you for doing that.
Good.
With a 16-year-old at home, I really thank you for doing that.
And
Just
that's
give just give your child 16 and Savage by Silverhead. Which
even
was
She's really into music, and I will say she nudged me this year when I was like, "Hey, Alice Cooper's coming. Are we going?" So there's hope.
wow. Okay. Well, he's a very important man.
Yeah.
And I've known him for a long time because of Miss Pamela, is with him. The GTOs and Alice were all under Frank Zappa's monarchy. Do you know about that?
No, go on, go on.
Okay. You didn't know Alice Cooper was part of the whole Zappa lifestyle
oh yeah. Yeah, he
on the label?
for the first two albums and
Oh
everything like
yeah,
that. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you know about Miss Pamela, the GTOs?
Yes.
Girls Together Outrageously? These
We were
beautiful girls?
we were trying to be cautious about the discussions about Miss Pamela because we weren't sure how you felt about the
Oh, I
things.
love her. My
Okay.
wife
okay,
loves
good.
her.
That's
Everybody
great
loves
because actually a convention that we go to, Miss Pamela was a guest at last year, Rockin' Pod in Nashville, which hint, hint, wink, wink would be a great thing for Michael DeBar to show up to. And we can line that up for you if so be it. And
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of those, and not a lot because I don't have the time because of the radio show, but I do as much as I can seeing people because I want to be around people. I don't want to, just sign some obligatory piece of paper. It's so lame. Eye to eye is where I'm at. But Miss Pamela's the greatest. I mean, she's unbelievable. As a writer, as a mother, as a dear friend of my current wife, rock and roll, baby.
that's great. The one thing that I was going to mention about the younger generation to grab onto this, my children were born in the 90s, and I took your mission on early on. So they got to hear the old stuff. They got to hear the Beatles and the Stones and everything like that. And now they're much more well-rounded musically. And that's just continued because the new music isn't grabbing them. They're listening to the classic stuff, and that's where they really latch on to it at.
How old are they?
Well, the oldest is 30 and my daughter's 28. The youngest one is getting ready to barge in my door in like the next 2 seconds. He's 27 because he wants.
Cool.
He wants
27 is the ultimate rock and roll age. He's got to get to.
Well, I want to keep him past 27. So
exactly. Exactly. You get to 28, you'll be okay.
Yeah.
But so those conventions, they're pretty interesting. I kind of like doing them.
And the one we're referring to is all rock and roll.
Yeah.
It kind of crosses over into comics and stuff like that because all of that stuff goes with rock and roll anyway. But, and if I can toot our own horn, me and Jeff, we interviewed Bob Berryhill from the Safaris at the one in 2023. And that was an amazing time too. And I know you could bring that kind of amazement to the people at Rockin' Pod as well.
Well, I do all the horror movies too because of all the movies that I've been in. Ghoulies was made $100 million, and they gave me $10 for the entire performance. I'm only kidding. Look at you guys; you're so serious. But so I know those conventions. They're really fun, But because you can meet people and say hello and shake their hands. So I think you're allowed to shake hands now. Are you?
Yeah, I think you can shake hands,
that's allowed again.
High fives and all of that stuff now. So
it's a great, incredible, exhaustive vibe where you can't touch somebody. I mean, it's sort of gone. All of that, I would imagine, that's behind us. But there is such fear out there, and this record that I made is very, very positive. Everything I do is positive. And my radio show is positive. That's 3 hours a day. I'm on the radio for Stevie Van Zandt's Little Steven's Underground Garage. And I really, be kind, be cool, be courageous is my, signature. Because, it's one thing to love rock and roll and be sort of dark and heavy and all of that, but that's yesterday, that whole macho nonsense. Women, we are now in the age of women, and I do believe that to be true, where they are strong and they are emotional and beautiful. And I believe that that's really where the culture's going.
Yeah, there's some very strong women rockers out there now, like Paralandra, Plush. Plush is an amazing group that's out right now, and they're basically taking, what you started in the 70s. And keeping that kind of powerful music alive that just sets you on fire.
Yeah, and it's all Chuck Berry, and it's all the old blues men, and that's what an 18-year-old girl going, Chuck who, and but the truth of the matter is that bluesy rock and rollness was created by Chuck Berry, Little Richard, and Elvis, and so on. Simple 3-chord, sexy songs, and that's what I did. Except they might have had 4 chords with Roxy Music, but,
I don't think you can get away with only 3 with them.
Well, and on the subject of Roxy Music, one of my prepared questions was, that was a hit when you were still in Silverhead. So were you heavily involved, or was that like what was the hot new sound coming out in 75? Or did it take a little longer for you to grasp onto Love Is the Drug as a favorite?
Well, I mean, I didn't listen to anybody. I mean, we just listened to Silverhead. Fuck everyone. We were 19 and could care less about Roxy music then. Could care less about anybody. We just accept the audience. I mean, we had we opened for everybody. Every band alive we opened for, and Kiss opened for us. So it's that long ago, back in the 17th century. But it was really fun. But I could give a fuck about anybody in those. You have to be pumped up to be able to go through the whole incredible adventure of touring. I think I slept on a Wednesday once in 2 years. So Brian Ferry is not important at this point. But when I went through the whole thing about, okay, so how do I do this? And I immediately thought of him, Brian Ferry, because I think he's the Shakespeare of glam, really, in many ways. It's just so brilliant. And of course, it's in the record. It was the first single, as you know.
And a spectacular single it is.
Mm-hmm. So is it, going through the list on what you're going to pick for the album, was there something that it really... I'm assuming there were more songs than what you put down on the actual final version. Was there one that it really killed you to not be able to include?
Yeah, hundreds.
Yeah.
But I think that the 12 that I got, with obviously It's Only Rock and Roll from the Stones, and Stay With Me, I always thought was a really important song for Rod. I think people really saw what Sir Rod was as an iconic superstar rock and roll singer. I mean, all of them mean something. Bolan, of course. Bowie, yes, of course. Iggy, of course. There was, I really went through it for weeks, going through hundreds and hundreds, like you do,
mm-hmm.
going through a lot of songs. And those 12, I think, really say a lot. I'm 18 from Alice Cooper, Bowie, of course, Moonage Daydream. So you had him. So I think I really got a good bunch of tunes. Slade, unbelievable. Nutty Holder, what a singer, what a band. It's the Sweet. When I first knew the Sweet, Silverhead opened for the Sweet, and they were in beards and flared jeans. And then Chapman comes along, and all of a sudden, oh, blue eyeshadow, good Lord. So they went from the blues to fucking blue eyeshadow. I mean, it was just the perfect transition for this particular band. And, but they're great. They were great musicians. They're all gone now, but they were great musicians, in the early days, blues. And then glam became thing. And Mud, I do a Mud song because they were so talented. So it wasn't about being precious. How precious Iggy is and how precious Bowie is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I also brought in, working class guys that wore lipstick and then went out and had a beer with the guys. I mean, it's very different. Very different. So that took a long time to do those 12 songs. It took me a year to put it together.
A year?
Yeah. It took me a year to put it together. And also because I had to create a band that could play it. So I got Eric Schermerhorn from Iggy, and I got Linda Perry as a producer. Do you know who Linda Perry is?
Certainly do, and she is amazing.
Yeah, she's an amazing artist and incredible producer of Courtney Love and so many different interesting acts. And I got her rhythm section, David Goodstein and Paul Ill. And that's it. Guitar, bass, drums, and a tambourine. And nothing else. I don't want to ever play with anything else other than that. I don't want a horn section. I don't want three gorgeous girls behind me, at least not on stage. And, I just want guitar, bass, Elvis, Bill Haley, Chuck Berry, although Little Richard kind of had horns and stuff and that piano. But my point being is strip it down. We don't have room for frills.
Back what you had in the garage.
That's right. It's all about garage. It's all about youngins. That's why I always say, because so few bands are able to survive today. And I always say, look, this is what's happening. So in a way, a year ago, I saw it all happening. The bands were going to die, and the rock and roll is dead, as Bob Lefsetz would say. All of that. And I don't believe that's true. That's like, I mean, is Debussy not listened to? Is Tchaikovsky not? It's absurd. I mean, and Tchaikovsky is our David Bowie.
Yeah, because everybody, even people who haven't heard it, still have to be turned on to it somehow.
Yeah, I'm going to turn them on to it.
They have to be led down that path, and that's
Yeah.
what you're doing with this record.
And that's what Little Steven does. I mean, it's rock and soul music, and what he does is he plays Benny King, and Sam Cooke, and then maybe Mark Bold.
And
He's a brilliant man, Stephen Bensson. Absolutely brilliant man.
Certainly is.
And really cares about what he's doing.
How did you meet him? How did you meet Stephen?
We were in a band, me and Jonesy. It was called Checkered Past, with Clem Burke on drums and Nigel Harrison from Blondie and Silverhead on bass. And it was amazing. Steve Jones. But I was at that San Francisco gig, I flew up there from LA. Yeah. I had to see it. And then afterwards, it was so great. Jonesy's walking towards me with Paul Cook. By the way, they're back together again with the new singer. And they're going to play 3 shows in London. Do you know about this?
No.
Okay.
Enlighten me.
All right. There's a singer called Frank Carter who is a wild singer. And Jonesy saw him and said, let's do it again. Called Paul Cook, who I adore. And who's the original bass player? His name I can never recall.
Paul Cook?
Huh?
Matlack?
Oh, Glenn Matlack.
Yeah. Glenn Matlack.
So he got him, and they're doing this thing for kids, three shows. But I saw the Pistols, and Jonesy's coming towards me. He said, "Yeah, I stole a Silverhead album." It's just, I mean, what an opening line! You know what I mean? You've got a Sex Pistol walking down the hall of a hotel, going, "Yeah, I stole your record," like it was an achievement. It was a genius, and from then on, he's been my absolutely best friend, and I love him to death. And, he'd been through the drug thing, I'd been through the drug thing, and then we both got sober, and, and he's over in London right now, as we were, my wife and I, a few weeks ago. And it was great to see him, and it's great to see the Pistols coming back, because I do believe the coming back thing is what I'm all about. It's bringing that stuff that I know about. I'm not doing anything that I don't know a lot about, and that's cool. Because you can hear people waffle about this stuff, and they claim to understand what this music meant, how sexy it was, and how interesting it is today, where sexuality is done electronically. The music of today is about as sexy as a computer.
Yeah.
And you can quote me, and you can even make a fucking T-shirt out of what I just said. Today, sex is a computer.
Yeah, all the emotion's gone out of it. It's all just laid out there.
Well, it's secondary. Rock and roll music used to be the primal, primitive beginnings of your life. You wanted to dance and grind and move and kiss and make love and adore the blues and all of that rock and rollness, and Zeppelin and Robert Plant screaming and Jimmy rocking, and the iconic look at the world is now Harry Styles. I have nothing against Harry Styles whatsoever. I think he's beautiful. I think he's talented, but that's another story. That's his music. It's R&B based, and it's his, and he sings it great. That's not any competition here. All I'm trying to do is bring youngins into this world that I think is important. It's fun. Open the door of the bedroom rather than the kitchen.
Exactly.
Drop the needle on Down in the Streets by Iggy and the Stooges.
Yeah, I mean, I've known Iggy for 50 years.
Yeah.
And
That's what I think of when you talk about like sexuality on record back in that era. That's, you know,
well,
that's
he
right
is
up there.
that. You know,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's what he is up there, and he has been, if you pardon the expression, and he has been for many years. I mean, Iggy is Elvis on
Def-
par in his chapter of rock and roll for sure. And I love him, Jimmy Osterberg, totally cool, Detroit rock and roll,
Yeah.
hardcore,
We're two Midwestern boys here, so
great. Midwest,
that
listen,
was
the Midwest of this country is cool because the two coasts are dead, terrified, throwing themselves in the Atlantic and in New York off the bridge because it's such a difficult time to be alive for most people. There's a lot of fear out there, and that's why I wanted to bring some charm and some fun and some, sexuality and and escape from the difficulties of our political situation.
because we
and
all need that escape.
yeah. And I'm
I
looking
don't
forward
think
to
it's an
hearing.
escape. I think that's cowards do that. I mean,
No,
they do. I believe that it's not an escape. It's a discovery. If you're escaping means you can't deal with something, right?
okay.
And if you're in jail and you try and escape, that's something else. Escapism on a maturity level means that you can't do it, you can't handle it. And the opposite is true. You must find a way of how to come into this grotesque world that we live in and make something out of it and make it work. And I always say, be kind, be cool, be courageous with yourself. And that's what I say at the end of every show. And that's, I believe, to be true. I'm not going to run away. I'm not going to run away from Trump. I'm going to run towards him for different reasons.
Like you've been doing what, last 55, 60 years?
Well, what's frightening is when he says, "Don't worry about 24, about 4 years from now, I'll still be here." And that is a hell of a thing to say, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
corrupting the whole political world in the United States and everywhere else. But that's another story. I'm trying to awaken the love and the velvet clothes of the past. The whole political vibe is another thing. And I'm sure a lot of people out there will disagree with me, and that's fine. Just listen to the great music that we're making.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing the rest of the album because you killed it with Love Is a Drug. And we're looking forward to being able to play more of it on the station.
Oh yeah, there's some unbelievable songs in there. Well, the next one is 20th Century Boy, and that'll be out any minute. And then the one after that is it's the sweet Fox on the Run.
That's a pair of great tunes right there.
Yeah.
And that is so exciting, that song. It's such a beautifully written song. I think Chapman produced it, who did my solo record, Mike Chapman, brilliant guy, absolutely, totally cool. And he was who helped me a great deal in terms of what I should do and what songs should be heard on the level that we're talking about, you and I, because I know that you and I are comrades in terms of music. You know that era. And then if this is a success, and it looks like it is, because this one is flying up the charts, Love Is the Drug. I don't know if you're aware of that, but this morning I got a note from my manager saying, listen, if this is going as good as it is in the beginning, imagine what it's going to be like, the third single. So we're very excited about it, which everybody says every day. It's my least favorite word. We're so excited. We're so excited about the project. It's just great and it's exciting. But I am. Anyway, But it's delightful to talk to you guys,
So if I can just kind of steer one way, you've mentioned Silverhead, but talk a little bit maybe about Detective and how that came about. And
well, it's my green card.
okay.
I mean, I fell in love with Miss Pamela, the Queen of the Groupies, and Silverhead, and I didn't want to go back to England, and so I didn't. And Silverhead collapsed because we weren't selling any records. We were way ahead of our time. Maybe that's the reason. I don't know. But, certainly it was fun. We played with everybody. And, and I knew Jimmy and they came to town, Zeppelin, and And I was rehearsing with these guys, and I said, "Come and listen to this, if you will." And being the sweetheart that he is, he's an extraordinary man. I mean, obviously. So he comes in and says, "Yeah, all right, I'll sign you to Swan Song." They just signed the Pretties, and that happened, and we made a couple of albums. But to be perfectly candid with you, we didn't get along really, and I was also very hardcore struck with cocaine. And it stopped me from really being as creative as I could do. Both albums, I think, have some great stuff on them. And I foolishly say I got my green card, which was meant I could stay in the United States with my beloved, and Jimmy knew that. And he really liked the band. But the thing is, you see, he's Jimmy Page, and Swan Song was not a label. They were under Atlantic, and that just simply means that Atlantic, oh yeah, give them a label, So we were not treated in a way that we should have been really. And of course, everybody says this, but there was no advertising of the group or any assistance from Atlantic, and certainly Swan Song with, three guys running around getting coke for everyone. But so you kind of know what I'm talking about.
I get it.
I got my green card. I got married, and I played Murdoch.
Yes.
So,
And Dog as Scum of the Earth.
Dog, yeah.
That's actually my introduction to you as WKRP.
So many people say that. Everybody says that. WKRP, Dog. That's where I first saw you. It was on telly. That is the most watched episode of that extraordinary TV series with Harold Hesseman. It was brilliant,
Definitely.
But that's the most seen episode, Scum of the Earth. And I was so loaded. I was so coked up on that week. I didn't sleep for days, doing that thing. So at the end of it, we just went crazy when there was the live vibe of the band. And it was detective. It was detective music.
Right.
And so that was really fun. I really enjoyed it. And then I got back into telly, and I've done, 60, 70 TV shows, maybe
even
more.
Alf, right? You were on Alf?
Alf was so great. He's my manager now.
No way.
No. Fucking Alf is my manager? What do you think? No, I was kidding.
I know.
But it was fun.
That's it. I'm firing Elmo now.
Yeah, really. But I did all of that, all those shows. Melrose Place, I did for a couple of seasons. So all of those shows, they were fantastic to do. But Murdoch was the best of it because I played this evil guy, but laughed, ha ha ha, bang, it's great. And Richard Dean Anderson was so sweet, and it was a very popular show. And as a result of that, I got to do a lot of things, And then I did Live Aid, the Power Station thing came up. I remember the MacGyver was not on telly anymore, and after a couple of weeks of me thinking, what am I going to do? I got a call from John and Andy. 2 weeks after Murdoch had fell off a cliff to come back again in the next episode, I said, you want to come and sing with us? Robert can't do it. Robert Palmer, who I adored and had adored for 10 years prior. And there I am at Live Aid, 3 days of rehearsal.
Spectacular performance.
Oh, the energy you brought to that was unbelievable.
Wow, thank you so much. That means the world to me. But it was a moment to remember for sure.
I would say it was probably one of the most rock and roll moments in the whole shebang, because I did get to see a considerable amount of it. But I wasn't aware that you had replaced Robert. So when you guys stepped on stage, I was like, well, who's this guy? And then, but this guy.
And then you found out. Yeah.
Yeah, I need to know this guy.
Thank you so much. It's so interesting because Robert Palmer at that time was such a beloved artist, and nobody loved him more than I did. I thought, and I'd known him years before this happened. But what happened was the smarty critics, when they heard that I had taken over, this is during rehearsal. So I'm learning 32 songs in 3 fucking days, right? because right after Live Aid, we went the next night and played New Orleans to 40,000 people. So I had to remember the words. There's no such thing as a teleprompter in those days. So, I jumped on the stage and I said, fuck you to all of you bastards. You're in my head. Meanwhile, I'm smiling and happy. And I thought I will not be, treated in that way. I will show exactly what I can do. And you've got to feel like that in this crazy business. You've got to believe in yourself. You know that.
Yes.
If you don't believe in yourself, who the hell's going to believe in you? And those writers, they just do it. They're looking for something to be sarcastic about or something that they don't like, because then they can be cleverer. To say that was an incredible performance of a guy who, hardly rehearsed for it in front of 2 billion people. How about that? Wouldn't you have said that? But then I got a couple of people. A lot of the writers, journalists did say that. And I've learned over the years not to read any of it anyway. But in that case, I was really looking for a couple of people that might have liked it. And guess what? The people out there liked it, And then the tour, the next show is with two guys from one of the biggest bands in the world, Duran Duran. We walk out there, 40,000 girls. This is the second gig after Live Aid. Live Aid, was the first real time that we sung together. Can you imagine that? If the biggest audience of all time, So then the next thing, I go to do singing for the Power Station, and the whole thing was like, Moses with the ocean, and by the sea just opening up. And they were going to one side for John Taylor and one side for Andy Taylor, and I'm looking down at a complete channel of nothing. There's nobody there. And I'm with the microphone going, over right here, there's a singer. And I learned so much about myself in those moments, of what to do and how to do it and how to get them on my side. And after a couple of shows, it went great for the next 6 months.
So did that end just by, the guys returning to Duran because I think they followed up with Seven and the Ragged Tiger after that.
I think they went back together again. I mean, I really haven't seen any of them since. Tony's gone. Duran is massive, and I think John lives in England. I haven't seen him from that day to this. It was.
John's an Instagram junkie. He has a million Instagram videos that he puts up all the time, and it's all entertaining stuff. And he's always excited about it just as much as you are.
He's a tremendous guy. I love him. I just don't see him. But you can imagine all of the people that I've known over these years. We were in London, and Britta and I got a couple of weeks out of Stevie Van Zandt, to go to London, and that was pretty great. I tried to get him to get it together, but neither of us had the time. I really wanted to spend time with my wife in my hometown that I hadn't been in decades, And I love John Taylor. We did a movie together, Sugartown, with directed by Alison Anders. I don't know if you're aware of that movie. It's really good. It's about a rock and roll band.
Those are the best movies anyway.
Beverly D'Angelo. It's pretty cool.
If I could go back to you had mentioned about how Swan Song wasn't a label like what you expect out of a label. I wanted to go back with Silverhead. You were on Purple Records. Now, how did that happen? Was that through a band member in Deep Purple, or was that actually somebody running the label that got Silverhead with Purple?
I was in a nude musical in London. I was 19, and West End, right? And Andrew Lloyd Webber came to see the musical because he was writing Jesus Christ Superstar, and he was looking for singers to do the demos. And I sang in it. And he came back. I'm in the dressing room. Andrew Lloyd Webber comes in and he says, "I'd like you to sing demos on Jesus Christ Superstar." And I said, "Great," And Ian Gillan was also doing those demos of Deep Purple. So Andrew had a relationship with Purple Records and said, "This guy's a star, let's do something with him." And so they did, and they got me an apartment in Hampstead, and the West End of London, beautiful. And I got, then we did auditions for different musicians, and the band came together in 3 weeks. Within 2 months, we'd made an album and went to Tokyo.
A great album that is.
That first album is kick-ass, yeah.
It is. That's been one thing, prepping for this has made, I think, both of us kind of delve back in to like Silverhead and Detective, and it's like, God, why haven't we continued to listen to this all along? Because Silverhead is just unreal.
Bless you. That's great to hear. It comes and goes. People dig it, and then don't, and it's there and it's here. Where I live is right here, right now with you, and I can't even think about the fact that they didn't go triple platinum. It's a complete waste of time because my life has been blessed, really has. I mean, I don't know if you've seen my documentary, but it's pretty moving. It's on Amazon Prime. It's called Who Do You Want Me to Be? I mean, I never had parents. I was raised in these public schools. At 16, I was into So With Love. I've been doing this for a long time. 60 years? So, I feel good about it. In terms of Emmys and Grammys, no. In millions and millions of sales, no. Do I live in a bigger house? Yes. Do I have beautiful cars? Yes. I don't know how I did it, but somehow it all worked out,
And kind of along those lines, Obsession. And all of a sudden, you got to think Animotion a little bit, I guess, for a little bump in the lifestyle.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that was shocking, I did it with Holly and Chapman and Holly Knight, who's a brilliant songwriter, as most people know. And then Animotion did it, and it was number one everywhere.
I think it's on every 80s retrospective album ever made.
Which then you can imagine why I have a big house. I mean, that I wrote that lyric in 10 minutes. I did not labor over that. The best ones you don't even think about. You just write it. I mean, John and Paul and all of that is something else. They were truly, truly blessed with the notion of each other, A, and B, they could really write songs. They were truly magnificent, like, the great writers of the past, Beethoven, they knew where the notes went, and brilliant. I wrote that thing in 10 minutes, and Holly, put out that groove of it, and that was it. It was one of those moments that are magic in that you're not really connected to it in some kind of way. It just happens. That's the best stuff. When you're not even thinking, I'll sit around with an acoustic guitar and I'll say something, and I kind of, nowadays, because I'm, 76, I record everything, so I remember this stuff, and it's a good way to do it, But Obsession, yes, beautiful. Thank you, Animotion. Wonderful.
I'm a big fan of the Puddles Pity Party version.
Yeah, he's amazing. He's fantastic. He's really good at what he does. Puddles, he's a very talented man, big, huge guy.
Yeah.
And we were in Vancouver, and I was doing, MacGyver in the remake, playing a different character, because they wanted me to do it in the new version of MacGyver. And the guy playing Murdoch was David Dastmalchian. David Dastmalchian is a brilliant actor. So Puddles lives there, and he said, come over to my house, and maybe we could sing something or we'd have some fun, whatever. And I said, can I bring David? David is now really, he's going to be a huge star. And we came to Puddles, and then he said, let's do Obsession. You want to do Obsession? I said, yeah. And that, he did it. He sang it with me, but I just listened to him. It was so interesting to just hear him sing it because he's an amazing singer.
Yeah,
trained.
He's quite a talent.
Oh, I mean, I'm surprised that he's not a huge star, but he's a clown, and a beautiful clown. And a really good vocalist. Did a good job.
Yes, indeed. And that's the thing with Obsession is Obsession was it's one of those songs like, where Jeff said it's on every 80s compilation. There's a reason because it is definitely one of the best. And I'm not waxing poetic here. I'm not being fanboy. It's just so well put together and it has balance. You have your line and then Holly's line and they go back and forth and it just flows all the way through and the song's over before you know it. And it's where it came together in 10 minutes. That's not surprising because it's just that good that it just lays itself out there and there you go.
Thank you. It was a duet, with me and Holly, and she's really means what she's singing. She is one of the most successful songwriters of all time. She's written, so many #1 records, but not then. This was early on. Mike Chapman introduced me. I was doing a solo record with Mike in San Francisco, and I met Holly, and we just sat down and did that song. And we did another one, which was equally spectacular. But she's brilliant. And that song, I was so lucky to work with her, and to find that feeling of being obsessed with someone is a dangerous drug.
Definitely.
Love is a dangerous drug. Right.
All comes back to that,
single,
doesn't it?
For the album that comes out October 11th.
Yeah, it does. And it's called It's Only Rock and Roll, and exactly with that tone. It's only rock and roll. I don't say, but I like it. I say, it's only rock and roll. And that seemed to be the only title, fellas. Do you know what I mean? That seemed like the only thing to call it. It's only rock and roll. But what it means is it a lot. It's because you can have fun, you can smile, you can a deep kiss as opposed to a little peck on the cheek. That's the difference between this music and my music. It's Tongues at the Ready, which would be the title of my movie, starring Michael DeBar, Tongues at the Ready. Who would direct that?
Ooh.
Francis Ford Coppola. But it's lovely to talk to you chaps. You got any more questions? You okay? Do we have enough?
Good. Sorry. I'm so kind of I'm fanboy starstruck a little bit, so you have to forgive me.
Well, listen.
But you're making this very easy.
I just hope you like the music, the record. I think you'll enjoy. They're all great musicians, and for me, rock and roll is guitar, bass, and drums, and a vocalist and a tambourine, maybe. But that's as far as I'll go. I don't want an orchestra behind it singing ballads. I didn't want horns or soul music. I love soul music. I play it every day on the radio. I'm a Sam Cooke fanatic, but I'm trying to get the point across for kids in a garage with a guitar, bass, and drums. And let's recreate and in your own way, rock and roll music, and listen to the right people, Chuck Berry, Gene Vincent, Eddie Cochran, all of the people, Jerry Lee Lewis. All of these people, and then throw in some Muddy Waters and some Howlin' Wolf, and we'll be away. It's just the blues and rock and roll. Very simple, sexy music that it means something to you. You don't have to have you don't need to be a poet. You just have to tell the truth. Tell the truth with a smile and a kiss. You'll be okay.
Sorry, I'm just making sure all my jotted down questions have been asked. I think they have.
The exact same thing. I did have one question. It was like, was there a band that you wanted to perform with, but circumstances just never worked out right?
No.
So you did.
I asked to join bands, but I no.
Okay.
But it has to come from my head and my heart for it to really be fun. The only time that happened was with Power Station, and I was very lucky for that because I loved the music and I loved Robert Palmer's melodies, and I thought I could do that. But he's sort of very contained. Something like it, when the heat is on. He's down there, way above that. I'm singing literally way above that. But the melodies were great. But I'm a rock and roll singer. He's an R&B singer. It's a big difference. Big difference. So no, joining bands of their own and singing their own thing. I did that with one of the biggest bands in the world, the biggest gig in the world. Why would I do it again?
Right.
It couldn't get bigger than that.
No.
Not that I was intrigued with big, you know. I just wanted to, try and do as many things as I could. And I did. If you watch my documentary, you can see it's called Who Do You Want Me to Be? And it's on Amazon Prime. And it'll show you exactly what I did. I was in these boarding schools till I was 16. And I left there. And within a year or two, I was into So In Love. And that started the whole thing up. And then I did the musical, the nude musical in London. And along comes Andrew. And the rest is the rest. Let me decline this call. Sorry about that, fellas.
That's fine.
Yeah, here I am.
Yep. I'm about halfway through the documentary. I was watching it before when we were getting everything set up down here. So it's
great.
been,
it's great. It's
it's been great.
Story. And he filmed it great. And all of the big, Don Johnson, my friendship with him, and Gabriel Byrne, and all these really smart guys that I learned so much from. And when you're around people that are really good at what they do, you become better. Absolutely. It's like doing MacGyver and all of that, and guest stars would come in, and some of them amazing, and you'd learn a lot, and some of them, the majority of them, were not, and you'd have to work twice as hard, which is fine. If I'm getting paid for it, I'll do whatever that director wants. That's why a good producer of a record, but I produced the record. My record, It's Only Rock and Roll, is my record. And if it goes well, I'll do the 60s. I'll do the 80s. I'll do the fucking 90s. I will go from Frank Sinatra to Kurt Cobain. I will go wherever I want, but I'll be doing it, not somebody else, not some corporate structure.
Because
anyway, we should end on that, I think. I think that would be the closer of this.
Can I have one more question?
Yes, sir.
Because we have he is truly a fanatic, and he's a listener from down under in Australia, but his name is Nathan, and he is a huge Status Quo fan, or Status Quo, depending. We actually keep a continuing argument on whether it's status or status.
It's status in England.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And that's what I usually call it. But had you ever had any interactions with Francis or the other guys in Status Quo?
None whatsoever.
Because they were more kind of like I guess from what I judged, like their touring schedules and stuff. Although they did have some worldwide success, they were more contained to England.
He was great. He's great. It's wonderful music. I love the music. We just didn't cross paths. Yeah. I was in the gutter of London. He was probably in a wonderful hotel, but I'm a rock and roll rat, and the blues thing, they were kind of bluesy, but it's a different world, man. It's a different world when you're wearing eyeliner in 1966.
Yeah.
And you can quote me if you like.
We'll just take it.
It was very debauched. Michael debauched. I mean, it was a different vibe, a whole different thing. But Francis, I have to say, is quo. I play them a lot on my radio program. I think it's terrific. But I never knew him. I knew he hanged out with Stevie Marriott and all of that, and those Cockney, like the rock and roll bands. I always thought they were sort of bluesy, brilliant bluesy kind of band. And then they had hits, I guess. But I was off to America very young and stayed. I've been here for decades. Civil War, I was here.
I appreciate you commenting on it. So,
but there you have it. So tell your friend in Australia that I love Australia. I've always had such a great time there. And Francis Rossi is a fantastic musician, and I hope that he'll listen to our album, It's Only Rock and Roll.
If he continues listening to A to Z Radio, he will.
Thank you, fellas. It's been really fun.
Thank you.
God bless you. Have a wonderful everything.
You too. God bless.